You're listening to Real Life, No Filter, where raw emotions and real moments take center stage. No masks, no filters. Just honest stories about life, love, and everything in between. Get comfortable. We're about to begin. Laura carefully arranged the fragrant cinnamon buns on the tray. At first, she thought about wrapping each one in a separate bag, but quickly abandoned the idea. They would sell out instantly anyway, and the packaging would only spoil their appetizing look. It was better they lay out nicely on display. Well, here you are. Brought your buns, eh? She heard a snide voice behind her and flinched in surprise. God, Valerie, why do you sneak up like that? As if on purpose, just to scare me. Her colleague Valerie grinned. How else? What if you're doing something you shouldn't be? I need dirt, so I can use it later if needed. Laura frowned. You're a fool, Valerie, she said. Valerie put a hand on Laura's shoulder. Oh, come on, Laura. I was just joking. Just blurted it out. And I'm not sneaking up. I always walk this quietly. You know that. Laura didn't reply. She knew Valerie too well. You could expect anything from that woman. Laura had seen Valerie cheat customers more than once, fiddling with the weight, short-changing them, or even not putting everything in the bag. She was cunning, knew who and how to trick. She had an amazing instinct. She could spot someone she could swindle from a mile away and who wasn't worth bothering with. Of course, Laura never told anyone about Valerie's tricks, including the shop owner. Telling tales and snitching wasn't in her nature, but Valerie loved it. Because of her, one of the sales girls lost her job 6 months ago. Valerie set the girl up, saying nasty things to the owner. That's why Laura had no doubt. If Valerie found even the slightest thing that could cast a shadow on her reputation, she would certainly use it. But there was nothing to reproach Laura for. She was honest, didn't secretly take products home. She was always open with customers. And she had a good relationship with the owner, Mr. Davies. As soon as she started working for him, he immediately warmed to her. Laura felt that he treated her specially, almost like a daughter. He even allowed her to sell her buns so she could earn extra money. That's why Valerie, obviously, held a grudge against her and looked for any excuse to ruin her reputation. But simply slandering didn't work. Mr. Davies knew Laura too well to believe gossip. Irrefutable proof was needed. Why are you so quiet today? I've asked you something several times already and you're not answering, Valerie said. What? Did you say something? Laura asked, startled. I said you don't look well today. Didn't get enough sleep, I bet? Boyfriend keeping you up at night? Valerie asked with a smile. Laura frowned, answering with irritation. What boyfriend? Valerie, you're starting to annoy me. I don't have anyone, you know that. I don't have time for romance. Valerie adjusted her hair, glanced in a small mirror, touched up her lipstick, and snapped it shut. Then she persistently continued. Well, it's a shame you don't have a man. How many years has it been since your husband left you? 5 years, probably? 6 years, Laura corrected gloomily. How can you go 6 years without a man, Laura? You should have gone through 100 by now, and you're still sitting alone, moping. Okay, if your husband was around. Look at me. I had a wild night with my husband. I'm just blooming. And look at yourself in the mirror, like a ghost, just dark circles under your eyes. If you were losing sleep over a man, you'd look completely different. And your cold bed will soon dry you up completely. Valerie, have you lost your mind? What men? My daughter is sick. That's why I didn't sleep. I sat by her bed all night. She has a terrible cough again. Nothing helps. And you with your men. I'm glad for you that everything is well. but I'm not interested." Valerie turned away offended and got busy with her own things. She was clearly trying to provoke envy, to show how wonderful her personal life was, while Laura was alone. She wanted to sting her more painfully again. It annoyed her that Laura wasn't reacting at all. And Laura, at that moment, was thinking how wonderful it would be if all the buns were bought today. She would take the earnings and immediately go to the pharmacy for medicine for Alice. Several working hours passed. Most of the buns were already sold. Only a couple were left. Valerie watched the satisfied Laura with envy. The cinnamon buns were incredibly popular. Customers really liked them. Some regular customers constantly asked which days these buns were brought in. They were so good, people wanted to buy them again and again. Laura smiled shyly with pleasure. With Mr. Davies's consent, Laura brought her buns 3 times a week. They were sold out even before closing time. Finally, there were no buns left at all. Laura counted the necessary amount from the till, made a note in the thick notebook under the counter, and put the money in her pocket. "What's going on here?" "All right, empty your pockets. Hands on the counter." Laura flinched, then laughed. "Mr. Davies, you scared me too." The owner shook his head sympathetically. "Laura, you've been a bit on edge lately and look very tired. Is something wrong?" "No, nothing special. Everything's as usual. Alice is coughing badly again. I just don't know what to do. I've taken the earnings for the buns. I'm going to the pharmacy to buy medicine. I hope she feels better right away." Mr. Davies looked closely at her tired face. He sincerely felt sorry for Laura. No one took care of her. She took care of everyone. She had shouldered so much that her fragile shoulders could barely bear the burden. But she stubbornly rejected any help that the kind Mr. Davies offered her. She didn't want to feel obligated, although he offered help from a pure heart, without any conditions, and all because of her damned ex-husband. He kept telling her, while she was on maternity leave, that she owed him everything. She owed him sitting with the child and keeping quiet, doing all the housework and shopping herself, carrying heavy things, silently enduring humiliation, patiently waiting for him from his nights out without asking who with or where, and then, of course, putting the drunk to bed. She was supposed to forget that she was a person and that she was a woman. He turned her into a frightened mouse who was afraid to squeak. Mr. Davies was sure that all this couldn't help but affect her daughter, which is why the child was so weak and constantly ill. "Of course, Laura, you can leave an hour early today. I'm letting you go. You'll have time for the pharmacy and to sit with your daughter. Valerie can manage." Laura smiled gratefully and thanked the owner heartily. Valerie heard the whole conversation. As soon as Mr. Davies left, Valerie immediately approached Laura. "Look at that. Soon you'll stop working altogether. The boss will pay you just for batting your eyelashes at him." "Valerie, what nonsense are you talking? He just treats me well, that's all. I'm grateful to him. He helped me believe again that the world isn't without kind people." But Valerie narrowed her eyes and grinned. "Oh, yes, not without kind ones. Only behind that kindness lies a completely different intention. He's clearly counting on something more than just your gratitude. Has he not offered you to thank him for his kindness yet? Well, it's a matter of time. The hints will start soon, you'll see. I understand these things. I've been in hundreds of such situations. As soon as a man does something for a woman, demands for gratitude immediately appear. I don't think I need to explain what kind of gratitude we're talking about. Bed, Laura, bed. For men, these things are always first. Let me give you some advice. Don't refuse when he offers to get closer. Caress him, sweet-talk him, show him pity, give him attention, and you'll be happy. Who knows? Maybe you won't even have to work. He'll help you. He might even raise your child." Laura almost choked with indignation. She blushed, imagining what Valerie was talking about. Laura looked around fearfully, afraid someone might hear their conversation, and whispered, "What are you saying, Valerie? You've completely lost your mind. Mr. Davies would never do such a thing. He's married. He's like a father to me. You wouldn't understand. I don't want to talk about this anymore. If you say something like that again, I won't talk to you at all." Valerie snorted and walked away, and Laura couldn't recover for a long time. Could what her colleague was saying possibly be true? Laura shuddered at the thought that Mr. Davies might be hinting at intimacy. No, not because he was unpleasant or unattractive, but because to her he was a mentor, a friend, almost a father, but by no means a potential lover. Laura left work an hour early, as the owner had allowed. As she walked to the pharmacy, Laura remembered her ex-husband. It was because of him that she hadn't waited for David to return from the army. Chris had swept her off her feet in just a few hours. They met at a party and hadn't been apart since. 2 months later, they got married. Laura still blamed herself for not even telling David about the wedding in person. She just wrote a letter and then moved to another city with her husband. However, married life turned out to be far from cloudless. For the first 5 years, everything was fine. They lived soul to soul. After she got pregnant, 5 years later, Chris changed. It was as if his pregnant wife had become repulsive to him. He constantly mocked her, didn't touch her, stopped being supportive. The pregnancy was difficult. She suffered from terrible morning sickness, but Chris didn't support his wife. After the child was born, it got even worse. He was expecting a son, but a daughter was born, and he constantly blamed Laura as if it was her fault. While Laura was on maternity leave, he blamed her for everything and didn't help with anything. On weekends, he went out with friends until morning. Laura suspected there were other women there, but she didn't dare say a word. Laura returned from maternity leave but couldn't work. Alice was constantly sick, and Laura eventually had to quit. Her husband's abuse intensified, and 6 months later he left her. Or rather, kicked her out. The apartment was his. "I don't need you anymore, and your sick daughter either. Pack your things and go to your mother. You have nothing to do here. I've filed for divorce and I'm getting married soon. I've found a girl who is completely unlike you. She's beautiful and cheerful. And you're like a doormat." Laura and her daughter returned to their hometown. This marriage left a deep mark on her life. She was no longer the carefree and cheerful girl she once was. Now she was an exhausted, tired, frayed woman who was doing her best to provide her daughter with everything she needed. It was good that they lived with her mother, so they didn't have to spend money on rent. Otherwise, they simply wouldn't have survived. Laura snapped out of her memories, finding herself at the pharmacy. She bought the necessary medicine and went home. The next day at work, unexpected news awaited them. Mr. Davies was going to Moscow with his wife due to her health problems and was leaving his son-in-law in charge. "He has a daughter? I didn't know. Why did he never say?" Laura whispered to Valerie. "Oh, I thought you knew. She's been gone a long time. Died very young, at 25. Cancer. Something with her brain, I think. They said she suffered terribly, screamed in pain. Horrible. And her husband was with her until the very end, although there were rumors he married for money, supposedly loved someone else. But she left him. But that's all gossip. Who knows what's true? Anyway, after his daughter's death, Mr. Davies maintained a good relationship with his son-in-law, and now he'll be in charge instead of him. It'll be interesting to see what kind of person he is, what to expect from him. Maybe he'll let me sell my buns too." And Valerie giggled maliciously. The next day, Mr. Davies brought his son-in-law to brief him. As he approached the staff to introduce his son-in-law, Laura felt the ground disappear from under her feet, as if she had been lifted into the air and suddenly dropped. She held her breath for a moment, and her heart pounded wildly, as if ready to leap from her chest. Standing before them was David, the very same David, her former fiancé, whom she hadn't waited for to return from the army, in person. Strange, but he had barely changed. But Laura was completely different. He didn't even recognize her. When he looked at her, his gaze was completely indifferent. He smiled politely, as if to make it clear that working with him would be easy if they followed the rules and weren't cheeky. But his gaze didn't even linger on Laura. Mr. Davies went to explain things to David, and Laura worked all day, flinching at every sound of his voice, whether it was a customer or Valerie. Then Mr. Davies and David left. Laura felt a deep sadness and awkwardness. Now she would have to see David every day. What if he did recognize her after all? Or conversely, didn't recognize her at all and would interact formally, like with the other staff? Laura couldn't even decide which option was worse. But the situation resolved itself that same evening. Valerie left earlier, and Laura stayed, waiting for the security guard. He was late today. The shop was supposed to close soon. Laura had already taken the keys when she heard the door slam. "The shop is closed, sorry," Laura called out, coming from behind the counter. And then she froze, not knowing how to react. David was standing before her. He was looking at her intently, and it was impossible to read his thoughts from his gaze. But then he spoke. "Hello, Laura. Hello again. You recognized me. I thought I'd changed beyond recognition." David shook his head. "No, that's just how it seems to you." They fell silent. Laura didn't know what to say, and then she understood. It was now or never. "David, forgive me. Forgive me for that awful thing I did. You can be sure. I paid for it in full and will be paying for it for the rest of my life. You know, we were very young. I realized that over time. At first, I was angry. I even hated you. But then I realized that I was demanding too much from you. I think that's what pushed you away. I just needed to love you, and all I did was demand. You simply met someone who loved you without any demands, only gave, and I made a mistake." Laura lowered her eyes. "He was a monster. He broke me. I thought I deserved it. I shouldn't have done that to you. I got what I deserved," she whispered. David wanted to say something, but he didn't get a chance. Laura's phone rang. She answered. It was her mother calling. "Yes? What? I'll be right there." Laura burst into tears. "What happened?" David took Laura by the shoulders. "My daughter, Alice. She can't breathe. I need to get home immediately." David quickly locked the shop. He drove Laura home in his car. Alice was having such a severe coughing fit that she started choking. She couldn't get enough air. David took Alice and Laura to the hospital. He went in himself and started hurrying the doctors. Everything happened quickly. Alice was given prompt medical attention. The danger passed. When the doctor came out and said the girl would be kept overnight, but there was nothing more to worry about, Laura cried. David held her close and said, "Everything will be all right." It turned out Alice had a severe allergic reaction. Laura had been treating a common cough, but it wasn't just a cold, it was an allergy. David didn't leave Laura. A few days later, he brought in a specialist from another city. He examined the girl and ordered tests. David paid for all the expenses. He sent the test results to the doctor, who prescribed treatment. And for the first time in several years, Alice stopped being tormented by coughs. Yes, the treatment was long and expensive. Perhaps she would have to take medication her whole life, although the doctor said there was a chance Alice would outgrow it. The main thing was that the reason for her frequent illnesses had been found. Laura was happy. Alice had changed a lot. She stopped being constantly sick, became more cheerful, like a normal child, and all thanks to David. 2 months passed. All this time, David and Laura only communicated in snatches, mostly about Alice. When the girl recovered, David stopped calling, and then Mr. Davies returned with his wife. His wife had been cured, long rehabilitation was needed, but that was a minor thing. The owner returned to the shop, and David disappeared. Laura was very sad, her heart ached. She realized that she felt not just gratitude towards David, but something more. And then, about 2 weeks after Mr. Davies returned, David came to her house. It was a weekend. He came with a bouquet of flowers, a large box of chocolates, and a whole bag of sweets for Alice. The girl immediately dragged the bag into her room. Laura's mother went into the living room, leaving David and Laura in the kitchen. And David confessed that he could no longer hide his feelings. He still loved Laura. He had never stopped loving her. He had married Mr. Davies's daughter, trying to forget Laura, but it hadn't helped. And now his feelings had flared up with new strength and gave him no peace. He realized that if he didn't tell Laura everything, he would never forgive himself. "I love you even more than I did back then, in our youth. I don't want to hide my feelings anymore." Laura simply hugged David without saying a word. 6 months passed. David and Laura got married, and he took his wife and daughter to live with him. Laura no longer worked at the shop, didn't work at all. David was a wealthy man and didn't want his wife to work. Laura took care of the house, herself, her daughter, and her husband. Mr. Davies was happy for them. He considered Laura almost a daughter and David a son. They had a wonderful relationship with him. Laura was transformed. She no longer considered herself unattractive, wasn't worn out and tired. She blossomed. David's love brought her back to life. And she was happy that everything turned out this way. Perhaps, to find such boundless happiness, they first had to make mistakes. Only after that did they truly understand the value of love.